Okay. And I am recording this so you guys can rewatch this lecture since the essay isn't due for about 6-7 weeks, plus the Thanksgiving break, of course. So, anywho, let's look at the due dates first and foremost. Monday, the 16th of November, your annotated bibliography is due in Canvas. In the Canvas assignment, I've put some links to what an annotated bibliography entails. The Wednesday before in class for the brick and mortar classes, I'll go over what should be, briefly what should be in an annotated bibliography. It's not that complicated. Basically, you cite your source like you would on the works cited page, and then you write, a decent sized paragraph, 4 or 5 sentences that briefly summarizes the work and says how it might be useful in your essay. Now, one thing I will remind you of, this class has an approved research material section in the syllabus. All my classes do, web and brick and mortar. If it's a .edu or a .gov, you can use it without asking my permission. If it's found in the Alabama Virtual Library or any other link from the library website, you can use it without my permission. However, if it's a .com, a .org, a .biz, .net, any of those that's not found on the library website, you have to get prior approval by email, so I have a record of it before you turn in your paper. Basically, I want you guys to not use things like Spark Notes, 123 Help Me. If you use 123 Help Me, I pretty much think that your paper's plagiarized, so you don't want to use that type of website. I let students use Shmoop reluctantly because it's on the library, it's linked on the library website, but we have so many databases, Lit Resource Center especially, that have so much better information than the kind of thrown together websites or commercial websites. So make sure that you're following the guidelines for approved research material in the class. Questions on that? Okay. I don't know why it says Tuesday, but it's Monday the 16th. The rough draft is due for extra credit. There is a forum on Canvas where you can submit your rough draft and get my comments on it before the final draft is due. If you submit your rough draft, it's worth 5 points of extra credit on the paper. And also, if you read and comment on your classmate's draft, it's worth 1 point of extra credit per paper, up to 5. So, this is a 200-point paper, so you can earn an extra 5% potentially on the essay if you get it done early, okay? Then the final draft will be due, why do I have such screwed up dates on here? On Monday, the 30th of November, and that's on Canvas. And that's the first day after Thanksgiving. If you're making plans to go to the Iron Bowl or be really hungover after the Iron Bowl, make sure, well, you guys are all under 21, so none of you drink, right? Anywho, you need to make sure that you plan accordingly as far as your essays go. We don't have school the week of Thanksgiving at all, so you do have time to get this essay done if you can make yourself get the work done. Let's see. Any questions about the due dates? Okay, let's look at the assignment. Throughout this term, we've examined heroes and their journeys. For the research paper in this course, write a 1,300-word to 1,600-word essay that makes an argument for the character you think is the most heroic from the works we have read this semester. Yes?
I have a question about the due date.
Yes.
The bibliography and rough draft will be the same day?
Yes, because the bibliography is required, the rough draft is not. I want to take a look at your sources before, so I can steer you in the right direction.
So there's a certain number of sources we need to use?
Yes, I'll get to that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's 4. Yep, 4 secondary sources. Plus the primary source, which I'll get into in a minute. Other questions? Those are good ones, though. Okay. You'll want to consider several literary elements of the pieces, such as imagery, character, tone, plot, metaphor, simile in your discussion. Now, these are just brainstorming ideas. It's not a checklist. So, here's some further clarification on the assignment. The Merriam-Webster dictionary defines hero as a mythological or legendary figure, often of divine descent, endowed with great strength or ability, an illustrious warrior, a man admired for his achievements and noble qualities, one that shows great courage. Okay, we're not just limited to heroes. We can also focus on heroines if we want to. Okay, now let me mention something about the dictionary. Can you use the dictionary on this paper? Yes. Will it count as one of your 4 sources? No. A secondary source is going to be something that discusses the work or an issue in detail. A dictionary is kind of a cheap way to add to your secondary sources. Yes?
Would we have to cite it then?
Yes, if you use it, you have to cite it. You can use it. It's just not going to count as one of those secondary sources. Yes? It would be the primary source, yes. The textbook would be the primary source for this paper. The primary source is the work. A secondary source would be a source that talks about the work or talks about an issue found in the work. Other questions? All right. Which character that we've had this semester most fits the definition of a hero? You can use the above definition or create your own. In fact, it'd probably be a more interesting paper if you create your own definition of what makes for a hero or heroine. In your essay, you must analyze what makes a character a hero and then justify how the character you have chosen fits that definition. Some of the things you might consider are, is it deeds, character, spirit, or something else that makes someone a hero? What relation does the hero have to his or her civilization? Why do we see so many heroes in literature? How does this hero compare to heroes in other works that we've read this semester? You can certainly compare them to other works. However, if you do, you would have to cite each of the works that we have, and those would be primary sources, all in all. Now, I've been talking about citing the primary source. If you were looking this up in the Pocket Style Manual, what would you cite? Would it be cited as a poem, a short story, a book with an editor, what? It's a book, but a special type of book. It's an anthology. So if you look at the Pocket Style Manual, look up a work in an anthology. Okay, that's how you would cite it. Now, some of the works do not have authors. The translator is not the author. The editors are not the author. Okay, if the author is unknown, you start with the title of the work in the citation. So there's stuff to keep in mind as you're creating that works cited page. All right, other questions before I move on? Okay, this is not a checklist, but some of the ideas you start, some ideas for you to start your brainstorming. You must come up with your own thesis and prove it throughout the course of your essay. And part of the reason that I'm doing this video so early in the term, handing out the essay so early in the term, is I want you guys to start taking a look at various characters. Now, there is one character that we're going to read after the essay is due, Hamlet. So if you like Shakespeare, you might consider reading through that work early to see if you want to write about him. There's a lot to write about in Hamlet. It's probably got more criticism and essays written about Hamlet than maybe any of Shakespeare's works, which is saying a lot. All right, questions before I move on? All right, in addition to your own analysis of the works, you must use at least 4 secondary sources that you incorporate into your argument. Now, in your works cited page, you're going to have at least 5 entries, the 4 secondary sources and the primary source. Okay, so at least 5 entries on everybody's works cited page. The primary sources do not count in this number, but you must cite them in your works cited page. In other words, you need to have at least 5 entries. Please use MLA style for your in-text citation and works cited page. Everybody has a pocket style manual because it's required for this class. That's both brick and mortar and online. There is a big MLA section in there if you need to look up how to format it, create the works cited page, all that stuff. It's available to you. If you need extra help and you want to bring me your works cited page, you're welcome to do so, but that's something we do outside of class. These sources must be viable, legitimate academic sources that analyze the work, and I'll remind you, make sure you take another look at the approved research material policy in my syllabus, because I'm going to be following that in grading your papers. All right, questions? Okay. Now, some basic requirements. You need to have an interesting and informative title, you know, more than Gilgamesh is a hero. Try to have something that has something to do with your essay. However, I would much rather you have a bland title than you spend hours and hours trying to create a perfect title and don't spend that time writing a good essay. Writing a good essay is much more important than having a great title. It's kind of like having a movie that has a good preview or trailer for it, and then the movie's just terrible, or the best parts of the movie are in the trailer, which often happens, unfortunately, with comedies. You must have a clear and concise claim, have a focused thesis that is underlined. Just as a reminder, in the introduction, what part of the paragraph should that thesis be located in? Last sentence or second to last sentence. You shouldn't start off an essay with your thesis. How can you focus your ideas when the reader doesn't even know what your essay is going to be about yet? Yes?
Given this is 271, we can have an implied thesis, right? It doesn't have to be a direct 3 points.
No, the thesis needs to be direct. Clear subject plus significance in the thesis, not an implied thesis. And please underline it so I can see which sentence sentence or sentences you think is your thesis. A thesis can be 2 sentences, but it's preferable if it's 1. But if you just can't word it right, if it's in 1 sentence, then make it 2. Other questions? Great at having all these questions. I like it. It'll help the online class immensely, believe me. Okay, other requirements. You need to have a clear argument for which character is most heroic. Offer a variety of reasons to support your claim. Use evidence from the text or text to support your claim. Everybody's paper should have probably, I would say, around 15% similarity when you get your turnitin.com report back. The reason I say this is if you're quoting the works, that's going to show up on the turnitin.com report. It's not plagiarism if you cite it correctly. It's just showing that it's similar to something else. But I want to see direct quotes in the paper, okay? Not, you know, gigantic direct quotes that are just padding the word count, but, you know, ones that help prove your points, okay? You need to use at least 4 secondary sources. It needs to be carefully argued and clearly written. Uses diction and style appropriate to a formal essay. Yes? Well, it depends. For poetry, it's 3 or more lines as an indented quote. If it's prose, it's 4 or more lines as an indented quote. So it really depends on how you do it. If it's a shorter quote that doesn't need to be indented, then yes, I want you to have the full lines in there. Did I answer your question, I hope? Okay. Other questions?
That is 4 full lines of the writing, not 4 lines of our paper, right?
Correct. 4 full lines of the writing. So, but for poetry, you know, it may not, 3 lines may not take up, you know, the full length of the, or full width of the page. So it's 3 lines for poetry, 4 for fiction. Other questions? Okay. Be free of grammatical and mechanical errors, including as well. We're doing that kind of staple because it's turned in online. Default margins, page numbers, is written in the third person. No second person, please. That'll get you a D on your grammar mechanics, or excuse me, a failing grade on your grammar mechanics grade. But also I want you to eliminate the first person. It's your name on the paper. We know whose opinion it is. You know, get rid of the I thinks, I believes, I feels, all those types of things, right, in the third person. The essay must be at least 1,300 words long. Follow MLA requirements, including works cited, in-text citations, page format, etc. And it's submitted into Canvas by 11:59 p.m. on the 30th of November, which is St. Andrew's Day, patron saint of Scotland. So maybe I should bring in a haggis that day in class. What do you think? Anybody like boiled sheep's stomach with oats? No? Actually, you can't make authentic haggis in the United States because you can't get sheep lung. You can't buy it. So, darn. I always wanted to see what sheep lungs tasted like. Let's take a quick look at the rubric. I'm not going to go over this step by step, but do pay attention to the requirements of the rubric. There is going to be an oral presentation that you are going to put on a Canvas, and I'll go over that a little bit later in both the brick and mortar and the online class. But this is the grading rubric for the essay itself. Any questions? Yes?
Two, actually. You want this paper written in present tense, right?
I want it to be consistent. So you can write in either the present tense or the past tense as long as you're consistent with it. Okay, don't bounce back and forth. Avoid contractions, please.
And my other one is, since we're writing about a fiction character, we can say he or she, right? We don't have to put their whole name every time.
Not every time, no. You don't have to put the character's whole name each time. If it does have an author, though, it's not so much of an issue with 271 because we don't know as many of the authors, or they only have a single name. But in formal writing, I think, well, for example, Shakespeare, you wouldn't say in a paper William states, you would say Shakespeare states, and probably not, no. Other questions? All right, the last two pages of the assignment are just kind of go over MLA, basic MLA formatting rules and guidelines. The final page has an example of what the first page in an MLA formatted paper might look like. You also have examples in your pocket style manual, or you can see me outside of class if you want me to double check your formatting. Okay, well, let me go ahead and shut off the video.